But it should be.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to our regular monthly meeting, the Warren County Board of Commissioners regular monthly meeting. If you choose to do so, I ask that you stand for a moment of silence, prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Father, we thank you for everything gathered here today and everyone here. Thank you that you know so much of each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure, before we begin into the business of conducting Warren County business here, the Warren County Arts Council and the Warren County Emergency Services presentation of artwork presented to the Warren County by Mr. Mike Sprayberry of the North Carolina Office of Emergency Management. We are so glad to hear and see Mr. Sprayberry here today. So we will feature this presentation. Ms. Duncan.
Hey, good evening. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to your introduction of Director Mike Sprayberry, and we also have a few other folks who are going to come right behind him. So I'd like to welcome and thank him again for coming out to be with us this evening. So this is Director Mike Sprayberry of the North Carolina Office of Emergency Management.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening, Chairman Davis, commissioners, guests, citizens. And I just wanted to say in advance, I know there's going to be a presentation made of a beautiful quilt made here in beautiful Warren County. And I want to tell you what it's all about here at the state EOC in Raleigh. We collect art from all the counties across the state, and we hang it in the State Emergency Operations Center. We want people to know that that is your state emergency operation.
Thank you, Director Sprayberry. And so up next, I'm going to have Victoria Lehman. She's with the Warren County Arts Council, and she's coming up with our artist of the evening, Mary Ann King Johnson, and the subject of this beautiful quilt, John Austin. So Vicky's going to say a few words, and I believe we'll have Jerry say a few words.
Beautiful.
It didn't take me long to think of John Lewis. I remember John Lewis told me a story many years ago about this man who gave him libraries to sell. And since then, I have visited John Lewis' place of business where he grows everything you can see on the floor. Apples, pears, blackberries, broccoli, they could be broccoli or and chickens. And it was just an honor to be able to depict his stewardship of the land and his tradition of keeping agriculture and farm going. So with that, we'd like to thank the State and also
Thank you. Sure, yes, let's step over there.
Come on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again to the Arts Council and the Warren County Emergency Services, and especially Director Sprayberry for driving all the way down here to accept this presentation on the Arts Council's behalf. And congratulations to Mr. John Earl Austin. That's a great depiction of him. It really is. Nice piece of art there. And we really appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, we have a lot to address tonight on our agenda, as you can see. So we're going to go right on to work on the county's behalf. And with that said, item number 1 is the adopted suggested agenda. So I'm going to entertain a motion that we adopt our suggested agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the suggested agenda.
Second.
It's been properly motioned by Commissioner Hunt, second by Commissioner Baker, that we adopt our suggested agenda. Is there any further discussion on this? Hear none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Ms. Paula Fully, would you read our conflict of interest disclosure statement, please?
Members of the Warren County Board of Commissioners are advised hereby of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act, but conflicts of interest and the appearance of such conflict, and further are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this Board of County Commissioners with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before this board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any undue participation in a particular matter involved.
Thank you, Ms. Pulley. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, you've heard the conflict of interest statement read to you. Does anybody have any conflict that they'd like to just explain? All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
surplus property.
The surplus property. Okay, Commissioner Baker has told us has informed us that she has a conflict of, I think that we'll be proceeding on some property here. So Ms. Baker, we really appreciate it. We know you'll probably just abstain from that vote. Right? Is that the procedure, right, Mr. Kingsbury? Thank you so much, Ms. Baker. We'll move right on to item number 2, which is citizen comment. Ms. Pulley, do we have any citizen comments that are here or to be read?
We have one citizen comment, and he is here.
All right, Ms. Pulley, you would just announce them and they have 3 minutes.
Mr. Bill Kearney.
I'm sorry, 5 minutes, I'm sorry. 5 minutes. I'm sorry, Mr. Curry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As you know, I wear a lot of different hats in the county. I'm here tonight as a community researcher, and I want to inform the Board of Commissioners of a new project that we're working developing here in Warren County, which is called Warren County African American History Collective. And it sort of builds on a research project that I've been doing for the past 2 years, where we've been recording oral histories of some of our residents with the Center for the Study of American South at UNC Chapel Hill. So over the past couple of months, we've been working to form this history collective of people, like-minded people who want to begin to document and save and use our rich cultural history in Warren County. We have Jerry King, who's here today, and Crystal Merrick, who served on this collective. So I've shared our mission statement with you. I shared some information about possible budgeting opportunity, funding opportunity. I'm here to invite the commissioners to attend, participate in our meetings, and to support the engaged projects we're looking to move forward with. We're looking at doing a special project for year 2021 entitled 1921, that is spearheaded by Jerry King. And so there's details on that as well. While I was putting together a packet of information for you this evening, I remember that over the years I've approached you for several different occasions relative to resolutions. So I also included a timeline of what the Warren County Environmental Action Team has done over the years relative to archiving and telling the Warren County story. My included with links to various video, manuscripts, and all those other documentations. So my address here tonight is to inform you about our new Warren County African American History Collective, invite the Board of Commissioners to participate or representative to attend our meetings, and definitely to encourage you to engage in our projects and efforts with whatever supports Commissioner is able to do. So all those documents have been shared electronically, and I brought some hard copies here tonight as well. I'm always available if you need to talk with me. So Jerry Anthony and Crystal Merrick, and all those that I listed on there who are also involved in the collective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. I'm sure that there'll be some type of engagement on this. I appreciate you coming tonight and sharing this with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'll be entertaining a motion for item number 3, which is our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been properly motion by Commissioner Hunt, second by Commissioner Pierce, that we approve our consent agenda as stated. Is there any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Move right on to item number 4, which is a follow-up to the August 19th work session. We do have a broadband update presentation and discussion by Mr. Joe Verdoso, sorry, I get that right, which is with the Mighty River LLC, and Ms. Duncan, the senior assistant to the county manager, I guess, is in charge of this project right now, correct? All right, so the floor is yours, Ms. Duncan, to introduce Mr. Verdoso.
Good evening, everyone. We do have Joe Barroso here with Mighty River. He's been our consultant who's been graciously working with us since before we released our formal RFP for bid back in January. And so he is joining us tonight from Michigan.
Minnesota.
I knew, but I couldn't remember for a split second. So he's joining us this evening from Minnesota. Thank you, Joe, for making time for us. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Joe, just so you know, we have your slides up here in the room with us.
Okay. Thanks, Charla. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, commissioners, thank you all for giving me some time on the agenda to give you an update on our broadband enhancement process for Warren County. I'm going to take a couple of slides just to review. So, Charlotte, we can go to the second slide. I'm going to review a little bit about our planning process and how we've approached getting proposals to enhance broadband coverage and service in Warren County. I'm going to talk a little bit about the initial proposals we received from vendors. And then I'm going to go into detail on a couple of new topics. The Federal Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which will bring about between $5.5 and $6 million in federal communication subsidies for broadband enhancement into Warren County, starting in 2021 and running through 2031, so about $600,000 a year. And then talk a little bit about our next steps with the broadband planning process. Next slide. You know, we talked about this and in consideration of COVID and the impact that it has had on working from home and schooling from home. I think this is even more pronounced than when we first talked about it. There are underserved areas of Warren County where broadband service does not meet the Federal Communications Commission minimum service. But even in the areas that are served, there are technical issues and other things that hinder the ability of citizens of Warren County and businesses of Warren County to connect to e-businesses. We want the county to stay competitive for the long term, both as a residential destination and as a business destination. We want to see job growth in the county. And we also want to understand what the government need is. So all of those things kind of combine together in our process. Next slide. The outcomes we are hoping to achieve is, again, I won't go through and read the slide, but from a residential perspective, we basically want to create an environment in Warren County for residential connection that allows us to scale not just to the immediate need for broadband in the future, for broadband now, but scales to the future that has the ability to expand connectivity to households and to businesses in the area. And COVID, as I put in the in larger type below, has put a different perspective on this. If you talk to a business person today or a work from home candidate, in Warren County, it was an inconvenience before March not to be able to work from home, or it was an inconvenience not to be able to connect at home and keep up with classwork, you know, but there were alternatives. COVID has put a different spin on this. We've become mobility impaired. We need to stay home. And if you don't have connectivity at home, you risk falling behind in studies, being on the wrong side of the digital divide, and not being able to work. So I think anybody who didn't think broadband infrastructure was critical before March of 2020 now truly understands the criticality of this infrastructure moving forward. From a commercial and business perspective, obviously we want to retain our businesses. Doing business online for our businesses is even more important today than it was earlier in the year. And with government, obviously we want to make sure that we improve the reliability of government communications, address any gaps in public safety communications if possible over the long term, and decrease the costs of internet service for our government entities. Next slide, please. So we are pretty much on time in our working process. I know this seems like, golly, we've got an immediate need and we want it to get done, but as you all know, this process takes time to make good decisions, and you'll see why in a minute that I think we're on a good path here. But in months 10 to 14, so by the first quarter of next year, we want to be making some decisions about partners that we will work with to enhance broadband service in the county. And the Broadband Action Committee with the county manager and the assistant county manager / director of economic development interim, and I and the committee we've been working with, the citizens committee we've been working with, feel very comfortable with our with our process for moving forward. This never happens fast enough to satisfy needs, but I think you all can understand that when you think about enhancing a road in the county, that might be a 5 to 7 year process from the initial idea about widening a road or getting it on the transportation improvement plan. Broadband's going to take, a couple of year process to make decisions, partnering with a vendor and actually get service up and running. So again, it's important that we keep that in mind and make the best decisions for scalability moving forward. Next slide, please. So we did have scoring criteria in the RFP that we looked at the two proposals that we got. And I've bolded some items that I really want to make sure that we hit on tonight as we talk about where we are. Ability to obtain financing. Your feasibility study that Warren County did a couple of years ago deemed that getting a fiber backbone in Warren County and fiber to the home was about a $17 million project. So we need to find funding as much as possible from outside the county in order to support that need and keep the county investment to a small percentage of that 17 million. We want to look at grant funds and other funds. We have always talked about the match required from Warren County. We want to keep that to a reasonable level that is within the feasibility for the county. We want to make sure that the service, importantly, is long-term sustainable. And that means that it can grow with the county. So it has to be a last mile service that is scalable, because today's minimum standard of 25 megabits download, 3 megabits upload that the Federal Communications Commission deems as kind of a minimalistic broadband service is going to be 50 megabits download and 5 megabits upload in 3 years, and potentially 100 megabits symmetrical in 7 years. So we want to make sure what we put in process today, particularly if the county invests, that infrastructure is scalable to those levels moving forward. Next slide, please. When we sent out our RFP and went through the RFP process, we received two proposals. We received a proposal from Open Broadband, which is a last mile wireless internet service provider that's operating in several counties in North Carolina and is actually partnered with Franklin, Granville, and Vance counties to deploy wireless service in underserved areas of those counties. And then we also received a proposal from a company called Radio LED. It is a company headquartered in Switzerland, and the proposal was for the county to build out a wireless mesh network that would cover the entire county. Next slide, please. Radio Lead, again, wanted the county to support about a $3 or $4 million investment in a technology that would have been the first deployment of this technology in the US. Open Broadband wanted last mile fixed wireless with some potential for fiber in the higher density areas. The concerns that the Broadband Action Committee had about both these proposals is that neither proposal was going to leverage the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund that I'm going to talk about here in another slide. So neither proposal had really considered how the $6 million in potential FCC subsidies would play into their the scalability of their solution. Neither proposal proposed an adequate pathway to continuous improvement. So in other words, they were most concerned about delivering that 25.3 service, and really didn't have great plans for delivering the 50 megabit service or the 100 megabit service that we would need in the near term. So with that, the Broadband Action Committee decided to explore other options than the proposals that we received. And we reached proactively out to CenturyLink, Cloudwise, and River Street, all of whom support a multitude of solutions, including a combination of wireless and in lower density areas and fiber to the home in higher density areas. Next slide, please. All three of those companies made it clear to us that they were going to pursue the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund funding that was available from the FCC. So let me talk a little bit about the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. It's a federal communications high cost subsidy program. So it's focused on rural America. The FCC collects money from all of us on our telephone bills and re-awards that to service providers to enhance service in rural areas of the country. The focus is on census blocks that currently are without 25 megabits download and 3 megabits upload service. That's where the subsidies are deployed. The funds are awarded by a reverse auction. So in other words, a provider would look at a census block in Warren County and they would say, you know, for the subsidy reserve price that the FCC has set, I can deploy this technology in it. And then in subsequent rounds, if there are still bidders, that subsidy price keeps going down and down. For example, the FCC did this with a previous Connect America Fund 2 auction, and that auction went 9 to 12 rounds. The funding formula for RDOF, and this is key, is more attractive the higher bandwidth service, up to 1 gig fiber to the home. So you don't necessarily, as a service provider, have to bid just 25.3. You can actually bid gigabit service, and you qualify for up to 190% of the subsidy. So in Warren County's case, 190% of $6 million would be somewhere in the range of $11.5 million if somebody who bid fiber to the home was awarded that after one round of auction. And again, as I mentioned, it's a 10-year annual subsidy. So again, this is a federal program, FCC guaranteed money, but it's awarded by reverse auction. And part of that reverse auction includes consideration for the scalability of the technology that you're going to deploy. Next slide, please. The areas in purple and light blue that I've outlined with the blue circle, our blue rectangle, are the areas in Warren County that today do not have 25.3 service. There's higher density in the purple areas and lower density in the light blue areas. There are a total of 2,789 locations or households. When I say locations with RDOF, that means households that do not have 25.3 service. That's about 40% of the total households in the county. The reserve price or subsidy is $675,763 per year for 10 years, so about $6.7 million. And that is divided unequally between the 2,789 locations. Really depends on where the location is, how far it is away from existing fiber in the FCC survey, and where it's positioned. I would expect, based on that average of about $2,800 or so per location, that it covers about 2/3 of what would be required for a fiber to the home investment. It would cover about 2/3 of the capital needed for fiber to the home. So you'd be asking a provider to invest the other third in that. And that fits well with the capital deployment and operating expense, that's 17 million that I mentioned earlier, which included some operating expenses. Next slide, please. So the Broadband Action Committee met with both vendors who submitted proposals in April of 2020. We were not satisfied enough to bring to the commissioners a recommendation to support either of those proposals. So we started to reach out to other vendors who had expressed interest in the past in the county. The manager and the consultant, we talked about this at the commissioners' work sessions in April and May of 2020. And we decided to explore what other options once RDOF subsidies were announced in June 2020. So in June 2020, we actually found out that about 6.75 million may be available in the county in those subsidies. The other options that we explored in talking with those three companies proved more scalable than both the open broadband and the radio-led proposals. And we began to discuss service with the RDOF. We believe we should wait now to discuss service until the RDOF auction is concluded. The RDOF auction starts in October of 2020 and will be concluded by the beginning of December of 2020. We believe we should wait until the RDOF money was awarded in order to begin discussions and negotiations with providers who win RDOF subsidies in Warren County. We want to leverage that $6.75 million. That does two things. It gets us in front of service providers who will already have fiscal backing to deploy hefty broadband service or scalable broadband service in Warren County. And secondly, it will allow us to make the most or get the best return on any county investment we would make. Next slide, please. So our recommendation is to monitor the RDOF auction from October of 2020. The auction actually starts October 29th through December 2020. Communicate with the RDOF auction winner in December of 2020 and make a final determination for county involvement in broadband deployment in January, February of 2021. It is really important right now that we have ceased communications with the three companies that are bidding on RDOF. We are not allowed to talk to them by FCC reverse auction rules during this period of time. It's a quiet period. Plus, it's very important for us not to make any final negotiations or financial commitments to these counties or to these providers long term, because the FCC will automatically remove any county commitment made to these providers prior to the award of funding. They will automatically remove that county funding amount from the subsidy that they give to these providers. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure our money is an enhancement. If we do decide to make an investment, which we haven't determined yet, if we do decide to make an investment, we want to make sure that that money is an enhancement to these providers rather than taking away from their RDOF auction award. So, Mr. Chairman, I am more than happy to answer any questions about this, but basically our recommendation is to wait until the reverse auction is completed and we know where that $6.75 million in broadband enhancement and broadband investment is going, and then begin to discuss with those winners or winner how the county can help with their proposal and help with their implementation to get the best broadband infrastructure we can.
All right, great, Mr. Perdoso. I really do appreciate your involvement in assisting Warren County in its ambitious cause to expand broadband throughout the county, which is definitely needed in this day and time. I will, at this time, ask any Board of Commissioners if they have any questions or concerns that they'd like to express at this time to Mr. Rodoso. Okay, but I do want to have just a little bit of discussion while we have him there, because he made some very key points that I do want to express, and that is y'all hit me out on the committee, all right? So where will we with that, and as far as implement that to see when this comes to fruition?
Thank you, Chairman. So, as Mr. Cardoso mentioned, we have gone through this process with a committee, and the committee is in support of this direction. We have discussed this with the full committee as we have moved along. So this recommendation is from the committee as well. And so what we will do is, just as he said, wait to see who is the winner of that auction, and then that is who we will then move forward with to come back to you and say, Board of Commissioners, we think we should move forward with provider A as a partner to leverage our county funding to implement broadband here in the county.
Okay, great. I'm excited, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really excited about this. This speaks volumes on our journey to get broadband throughout the county. This is huge for us. It really is. And I think that COVID-19 has really put the cherry on top of how important this is for us to get this implemented for our citizens to have broadband throughout the county. So again, thank you, Mr. Cardoso, for taking the time out and all your hard work and things that you've done to make sure that we stay on track with this thing. And of course, Mr. Jones, your direction on keeping this in front of us. And I really do appreciate that. Once again, before I move on, did any commissioner have anything they would like to express at this time before we move on? Okay. Mr. Jones?
Sure. I also want to thank Ms. Duncan, who has come on board and helped us move this project forward, as well as our committee members that included Warren County staff, as well as members of the community as well. So I think they have stuck with us through this process. I know a lot of people wanted us to move this along quickly, but I think moving along in the best way possible is what we brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I couldn't have said it any better. Could not have said it any better. So, Mr. Cardoso, are you just going to hang around for the rest of our agenda meeting? We like seeing your face, or we
I'm gonna stay on mute and probably turn off my camera so I don't scare anyone else tonight.
Well, thank you again, sir. We really appreciate it. And hopefully when this thing is all said and done, we get to see you in person.
Hope so too.
All right.
I hope so too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move right along to item number 4B, which is the Economic Adjustment Assistance EDA CARES Act grant proposal and presentation and discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. With us this evening, we have Professor Jean Bonds from UNC Kenan-Flagler School of Business. Ms. Bond has done an outstanding job of getting the proposal submitted on behalf of Warren County. And she is with us tonight. Also, Dr. Jim Johnson as well with UNC, and she will have a presentation on what this means for the county and its potential impact for us from an economic development perspective. And with that, we'll turn it over to Ms. Bond.
Thank you so much. I am sorry that Dr. Jim Johnson is not here with us this evening, but let me talk to you a little bit about what has been submitted. I'd also like to thank Paula Pulley with the county because she actually submitted it on grants.gov. But basically, what is available are some funding from the federal government that seems to be very much in sync with Warren County. So if we dial back to 1969, and I know former state Senator Floyd McKissick is listening to this on Facebook, but his dad had a very innovative idea for Soul City in Warren County. And together with former Congresswoman Eva Clayton's husband, they had a plan to develop a planned community in Warren County. And at the time, President Nixon was the president, and Senator Mitt Romney's dad was the Secretary of HUD. You can go to the next slide. As a result of those efforts, Warren County received some pretty substantial funding back in the late 60s and early 70s. And through a series of acts, activity really ceased on Soul City, as most of you in the county know. And so this is a great opportunity through the U.S. Economic Development Administration. They have an ongoing adjustment assistance grant that's available really all the time for counties and communities across the country. But under the CARES Act that was passed by Congress, there's also some special funds through this same grants programs to help with economic adjustment assistance in distressed counties. So one of the criteria is that in order to make an application, the concept has to align with your Council of Government Community Economic Development Goals. Warren County is part of the CARTAR COG, and this proposal does match up with those community economic development strategies that that regional organization has put together. The other piece of it is that the grant proposal needs to be responsive to the economic challenges in the county that have been worsened by the pandemic. Basically, what we want to do is pull together a very comprehensive strategic marketing plan for Soul City. If it is accepted under the CARES Act proposal, there is no match requirement for the county. So it would just be straight funding from the US EDA. We've also asked that they consider it under their regular cycle. So if it doesn't make it through the CARES Act funding, have them take a look at it through their regular cycle. And in that case, it would require a 20% match, which can be a combination of in-kind services, private grant funding, and other types of funding that we would have 60 days to be able to pull together. And I'm quite confident we'd be able to do that for this proposal. And then also as part of this, we asked Congressman G.K. Butterfield, our two U.S. senators, Senator Richard Burr and Senator Tom Tillis, to all write letters of support. And we also asked Senator Mitt Romney, because his dad was serving at the time this was first initiated, to also write a letter of support. And they have all done that for us. Next slide. Really what this economic adjustment assistance means is we could leverage the funding that was provided to Warren County so many years ago and take advantage of the regional water system, your transportation access, your agricultural assets, and your proximity to Research Triangle. Research Triangle was really just getting started when Soul City was conceived of, but now we know how successful it is. And you guys are really a short distance from RTP. So we can take advantage of those assets. And then on the economic adjustment side, Soul City actually projected housing for 1989 in excess of 18,000. Right now, your population of your county is only 19,000. So we're some years later. And what's happened is Warren County has actually seen an out-migration, people moving out of the county to seek employment and housing in other areas, seek jobs closer to the park, closer to Virginia, and then your deaths outnumber your births. So you're one of 36 counties in North Carolina where you really have an issue with the outmigration as well as the deaths. Yet when this project was first conceived of, there were great projections for how many residents. You can see on here that the projection was 44,000 by 2004, yet we're really not even at half of that. Back when this was first conceived of, there were multiple relationships and partnerships with universities, and that's still intact. Clearly, UNC Chapel Hill, you've got North Carolina A&T, NC State, North Carolina Central, all stand ready to help support this proposal. In health rankings, Warren County ranks 85 and 93rd out of 100 counties. So on the lower end of those health rankings. So again, bringing in some marketing and building Soul City as was envisioned with both housing and business development would be something that would be very helpful on those health statistics. The median family income, the poverty rate, and then really a critical number, which is your unemployment, really position the county well to be considered under the CARES Act. Next slide. So what we really want to do is we submitted a grant for $499,000 for 2 years. It's a non-construction grant. EDA also offers construction grants, but this is non-construction. And what we want to do is we want to build collective ambition. What does that mean? We want to talk to all the diverse stakeholders in Warren County, residents, business owners, elected officials, nonprofit leaders, to talk about how we pull these components back together around Soul City. We want to deploy a built to last whole community approach, which takes into account the social determinants of health. So those are all the factors that go into your life as an individual that come back out the other end in terms of how healthy you are. So it's your housing, it's your exposure to environmental hazards, it's the living wage that your job pays. So we want to build that approach into whatever we do with Soul City. And we want to look at a whole range of investment tools and be able to leverage this. So if we're fortunate enough to get the $499,000, we can leverage that with private money. Why? Because Warren County is almost completely in an opportunity zone. We don't want to just do real estate. We want to take advantage of the fact that businesses can locate in Soul City in Warren County and receive these tax benefits through the opportunity zone. So there's a whole range of tools that we can layer and leverage to build on this grant if we're successful. And we really want to build this region's competitive advantage, take advantage of that transportation access, take advantage of the proximity to RDU, and build on what was initially the concept of Soul City. And this is just a representation. These are all different types of capital that's out there and available. And if we can secure this base funding and build out a very comprehensive marketing plan for Soul City, we'll be able to layer and leverage a lot of different tools and build upon that investment. I was listening to Joe on the broadband. There's actually pieces of this that affect broadband because financial institutions can invest in broadband through the Community Reinvestment Act. So we'd want to take a look at all of these things and really see how we can build out Soul City. And I think that may be my last slide. And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bond. That was a great presentation. I'm going to yield to any board of commissioner that may have some questions for you or comments at this time. Okay. All right, Ms. Bonds, can you hear me clearly? Great. Look, I'm just so excited about this. When this project initially began, I wasn't even born. So, but to be basically at the table now to see this come to be, I'm just so excited about it. Soul City in those days was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was from a diverse atmosphere of sustainability, of people being able to be self-sustaining and grow and be a predominant, I guess to say, be a part of a growing community as far as being self-sustaining community when it comes to business and homes and jobs and all of the above. And is that correct?
That's correct. Really, Mr. McKissick was so ahead of his time. There's something called purpose-built communities now, which encompasses all of these services and everything that he really conceived of years and years before that. So it's a holistic approach that you can live and work in this diverse community. Correct.
And I'm excited about this because one of the things that we know that we can see so many years later is the regional water system. Had this not been established, the regional water system that we have in place right now probably not have been. And that has brought so much comfort to a lot of our citizens and neighboring counties throughout this partnership. And looking at your presentation, it really does grieve me just a bit, knowing that here in 2020, that, our county, it still has this out-migration, and we're trying to grow, and we're, with the health ranking, that is cause for pause also. But really the median family income is 35,000. That really in 2020 really concerns me, and the poverty rate being as high as it is. But I'm just really looking for the future, because I believe that this is going to be something that really does a lot for our community in our county. I'm just excited about this. I think that with your partnership, and of course, where the county manager has been involved in this, and of course the Board of Commissioners, we're really looking forward to this to come to be, and hopefully that this will skyrocket us for years to come. So, Mr. Jones, I see you raising your hand. I'll let you.
Sure, thank you. Just a couple of points to make, Chairman, and that is Ms. Bonds is working with us, and we also need to recognize her relationship with Congressman Clayton, which is a real big part of why Ms. Bonds was able to work with us so well. And also, if she would be able to give us a timeline, when we expect to hear something back about whether or not we are going to be in receipt of any of these grant funds.
Yeah, we submitted in September, so we should hear by November. And then funding, and that would be through CARES Act or through the regular process. And then that funding would be made available starting in January.
Well, great. Thank you, Mr. Jones, Ms. Bonds. Yes, much appreciation actually to Mr. Floyd McKenzie and his entire family. And of course, Ms. Eva Clayton and Mr. Clayton, that is no longer here with us, but to stand on their shoulders and to work towards what they had envisioned so many years from now, laying the foundation for us to build upon, speaks volumes. And I know there are many others that were involved in this program back then, and we do not want to leave you out, so we said thank you. I truly believe, Ms. Bond, this is going to happen. I really do. I really do. I think that we're going to get awarded, and we'll be able to grow from here. So with that, I would just again ask if any Board of Commissioners have anything they'd like to say or comment or anything in regards to this before we move on. Great. Ms. Bonds, are you going to hang around with us? I think Joe, he's got his picture up, and but he's getting out. But I know you've got a busy schedule, but thank you so much. Oh, there you are, Joe.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for joining us and working with us, and we look forward to getting this done.
Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the board, we're back with you, Mr. Jones, correct? Under 4C, which is draft the fiscal year 21 strategic plan and review.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. We just wanted to bring back to your attention, you all did some great work in early February with your retreat. You come up with these 6 goals that you wanted us to work on. And unfortunately, the pandemic happened right after that. So we never were able to get you all to consider and approve this sort of starter for our strategic goals. A strategic plan really has a bit more substance, but this is a great start for the county, and I wanted to bring this back to your attention. I did send you an update. What you have before you is what you originally came up with, and we had to adjust some of those dates because we were getting these back in front of you now. And so for goal 1, complete the broadband project by 2026, for example. we know that once we are selecting or select a provider, well, there's going to be a time frame for implementation. And we had in here, who originally wanted us to select a provider by June. We know that's not the case, so we've updated that to be December of 2020. So what we sent you had those dates adjusted to take into account that we just getting this back in front of you. And so with that said, we can go through each one of these, or if you feel comfortable that we have made the adjustments, then you could approve it, or it's for your discussion to consider how you want to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you can see that these are the draft goals that Mr. Jones is asking us to approve. And I just want to say, Mr. Jones, really appreciate this. This really speaks to our future and our past and present about where we're going and what things that we really have on our agenda to move the county forward. And I really want to say thank you for putting this together, you and your staff. Because of COVID and everything else that we've been dealing with, that you still remain on topic and on task to get these things done on behalf of the citizens of Warren County. So I'll refrain from going any further with that and reserve the time for the other board of commissioners who may have a question or concern. But if they don't, then I'll ask and entertain a motion to approve.
Propose a strategic plan review. Is that?
I have a question. I guess if we can just allow questions first.
Yes, you go ahead, please.
Yeah, for like goal 1, the objective 1A selected provider by June 2020. So we kind of already passed that, and we don't have them.
So what we have done is I sent you on Friday evening an update with the track changes. You just don't have that copy in front of you. And so that date is now changed through December. And I can go through each one of these when we change the date so you can all just see what we changed.
Yeah, so we'll just have it in front of us.
Sure. So goal 2, objective 2A, it says we will provide more with the report on progress. This is for our long-term water replacement project, and we provide an update for you. Originally said August, and we changed that to October.
Mr. Jones, interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Ms. Pierce, are you requesting me to go through each line item?
No, it's not each line item. It's just give us a quick overview for like some of them, like objective 1A where it has June 2020, because I don't think it's that many changes, are there?
It's not.
So,
Yeah, so just quickly say, objective 1A went from June 2020, since that's the copy we have in front of us.
right.
I don't know if that's the copy that's online. Which copy is online? This one?
Yes.
Yeah, and it'll help the people who are following us online too, so they can see it. And actually, it should be really quick, hopefully.
Sure.
Very quick.
All right, thank you. All right, and I appreciate that because we did intend for you to have one with the track changes, so I'll speak to it.
Okay.
Goal 2, objective 2A, that had a date of August. We will change that to October, as I previously mentioned. 2B, talk about a water rate increase that will be included in our fiscal year 21 budget. That's been changed to the next budget, fiscal year 22. Move on to goal 4. It says complete 50% of our recreation master plan by 2024. Objective 4A. We talked about sending out a survey to recreation providers. That was April. That's been changed to August because we have been working on that. Objective 4B was August of 2020. Update the recreation master plan. We have changed that to December of 2020. Objective 4E, prepare a report on alternatives and strategies to assist with transportation for recreation activities. That was August of 2020. We have now changed that to December of 2020. Objective 4F was to prepare a report on a joint use agreement for options for satellite parks and strategies. And that was for September of 2020. We'll change that to October of 2020. And the last change was one that's dealing with our internal operational issues to address employee morale. And we would like to implement and have an employee survey, and that's been changed to December of 2020. And that concludes all the changes.
Okay, we're still on you, Ms. Spears.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the draft FY 2021 strategic plan review.
Second.
All right, it's been properly motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Baker, that we approve the drafted project. What are the words I'm looking for here? It's just strategic plan review. I'm sorry. Thank you. As stated and presented with the amendments that Mr. Jones has just went through. Is there any further discussion? Here none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. We're going to move right on to emergency management updates. Mr. Jones, I'll let you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. We have Dr. Brake and Dennis Pascal from Emergency Management to provide you with their monthly update on our COVID-19 response. And I would just like to say that today and last weekend brings us to 6 months where we have been under a state of emergency in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is unprecedented.
Good evening, commissioners and citizens. Just sort of give you an update on COVID-19. Of course, Warren County's emergency is still involved in the pandemic. It takes the collaboration with county partners and state partners. It's been essential to attendance to the COVID-19 pandemic and is still ongoing. Emergency management in June and July, we issued out about 1,800 face coverings from our office. We issued out about 1,000 pair of gloves from our office and about 156 packages of disposable face masks. These are some items that have been received in our inventory that we've issued out to departments in the county and also to our fire department law enforcement. We've been able to procure supplies through the state resources and also various vendors to have ample supplies. And the National Guard was really involved early on in the disbursement of state supplies into the county, but that's now been downsized. A lot of deliveries now from the state agencies coming through a delivery agency such as FedEx or UPS in deliveries to the county for state purchase or deliveries to the county. One of the things that we really need to be proud of that's really taken on initiative is our feeding coordination that's been really engaged in the county to meet that need during the pandemic. Crystal Smith and Vicki Stokes has been really heavily engaged in working with our partners on this endeavor. In the report that you shared, that our current cities, you see the number of meals that's dispersed weekly from this. And also the county departments has been very supportive of the county manager in the feeding coordination with this, and also with some of the nonprofit agencies in the county and our school systems, the Warren County school system and Holocaust County has also been involved in the delivery of meals, loaves of fishes, and there's some of the churches in the community. And it's just took a strong community support, to help us in this endeavor, in addition to county partners, to meet this need during the pandemic. Again, emergency services, it's just been really involved managing with the pandemic. EMS continues to maintain operational readiness, adhering to the current local EMS protocol for high consequence pathogens. Also, EMS has been really involved with Duke RAC, is the trauma RAC that Warren County is a partner of, and we've been able to receive PPE from them, especially some disinfectant equipment and disinfectant, that we can utilize to disinfect the MS units and the MS buildings. So we've been really initiative in that part. The fire department, so I'm still doing periodically PPE survey for that and to see what their immediate need and future needs so we can build our inventory. Again, really my hats is off to public safety. I mean, my law EMS fire has continued to be engaged during this pandemic, both for natural and man-made events, and they are rapidly readable to assist when the need comes out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Basker.
Good evening. I share with you our COVID-19 case counts for the county and then share some information related to the governor's executive order that we want to make sure our residents are aware of. Our COVID-19 case counts for Warren County as of today include 307 lab-confirmed positive cases, 286 recovered cases, which means that 94% of our positive cases have recovered. We currently have 14 active cases, 2 hospitalized cases, and 7 deaths. So when we look at the data for Warren County for our daily lab confirmed cases, since the week ending September 5th, we are seeing a downward trend over 14 days in new cases, which is actually really good. We are also seeing that the percent of positive tests have decreased to about 2.5%. So you know that Secretary Cohen has been talking a lot about these particular metrics, the percent of positive cases in particular. So we are glad to see that in our area that we are seeing a decrease in those areas. We are not seeing any significant changes in the demographics of our cases. So about 41% of cases are between the ages of 25 and 49, and that has continued since the very beginning. That's the largest age group of cases in Warren County. And then about 27% of cases are 50 to 64 years of age. Most of the cases are female, about 57%, and 43% are male. We are continuing to work with our partners, medical partners, Hope Regional Medical Clinic, North Carolina Central University, and then our local partners, which includes our churches, to hold community testing events throughout the county. And our goal with this is to increase access to testing, particularly among individuals who are uninsured. Because if you go to the doctor and you want to get a COVID test, you usually have to pay for an office visit as well as for the testing. So when we do these community events, we really want to reach people who are uninsured so that they have access to testing. Since March, we have had more than 5,000 tests for COVID conducted in Warren County. So as you are aware, Governor's Executive Order number 163 was issued on September 1st. And this order moves the state into a safer home phase 2.5. The governor's executive order went into effect on September 4th at 5:00 p.m. And a main focus of the order was to allow for more businesses and facilities to reopen. And we're appreciative of that as we have some of those facilities here in Warren County. What I wanted to remind everyone that some of the provisions in the order remained from the last order. So the provision around wearing a face covering when you're out in public is still in place. And so we want to make sure our residents know that. Also, the mass gathering limits have increased to 25 people for indoors and 50 people for outdoors. So as we move forward, the advice is to really continue to follow the public health guidance. We know that these things are working across North Carolina. It is working in Warren County. As we see that our cases are either leveling off or we're having a decrease in some areas. So we just advise people, if you are sick or if you have mild symptoms, to please stay home if you do. If you have a positive test, or if you are under quarantine because you are in contact to a positive case, we also advise you to stay home. If you have to go out, please wear a face covering. So we ask you to please continue to practice the 3 W's. Let's all work together to protect each other by wearing a mask or face covering, waiting 6 feet apart for social distancing, and continuing to wash and disinfect our hands frequently. We also tell people just to continue the regular hygiene practices of avoiding touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, because we know people wear masks, but if you wear a mask and then you go under it to touch your nose or touch your face or mouth, you can pass germs onto yourself just from doing that, especially rubbing your eyes, which is something I have to be mindful of. So those are very practical things that we've been asked to do from the very beginning, sanitizing high-touch areas and surfaces. So we just ask everyone to continue with those practices. If you have any questions about testing or concerns, if you were close contact, any questions about COVID, you can call the health department at 257-1185. And that is my update for tonight.
Thank you.
I just want to say, Dr. Brink, thank you. And especially to the Board of Commissioners for their leadership. Just remembering months ago in this very room that we were first faced with COVID, and through the leadership of this Board of Commissioners and definitely from the guidance of the County Manager's Office, the Health Department, Mr. Pascal and his office, and definitely the citizens of Warren County who followed the directions to get us where we are today. We're not out of the woods yet, but continue to do what you are doing. We can do this thing together and move this county in a position that we can beat COVID-19, and we'll get back to doing business like as usual. But thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few more items just to run through, and I'll try to be brief with them, but they are of significance for you. I wanted to provide you an update on our Carlick Regional Water System project. As you know, we have been working with our partners in the Carlick Regional Water System to make sure that we are able to afford an expansion and upgrade project for the water treatment plant. Well, as you know, as we've gone along, we have talked about the cost for that project being around $40 million. That would be split up between the 3 partners. We'll be using grant funding as well as zero interest loans from the state. We did have a bit of a setback with that project. We had a design and engineering consultant that we're working with. They let bids for the project, and the project costs escalated significantly. And so we're at this point trying to figure out how do we go forward and are able to afford that project. But it has increased from $40 million to just under $60 million. And so at this point, all the partners are working with the engineering firm to sort of do some value engineering on this project to see if we can keep those costs as minimal as possible, or the cost increase as minimal as possible. As minimal as possible, but that means we're going to have to look at some alternative funding sources. And so I wanted to make sure that we publicly acknowledge that as we go forward on the project.
Mr. Jones, I know we've been dealing with this for quite some time. So is there a time scale on this?
Well, we're trying to get this issue resolved as quickly as possible, but there actually is at this point, next year, early next year, we will be eligible for additional grant funding from the state. And so it actually will be some value in us sort of moving one part of the project forward and waiting until we're eligible for additional grant funds to take care of some of these additional increases. So we are working on that. The colleague advisory board will have to make some formal action. So at that point, we'll make sure that you all are aware of it. And we have Commissioner Hunt on the colleague advisory board as the county's representative.
All right, sounds good. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Jones in regards to the regional water system proposal that is ongoing? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Sure. All right. The next item I have for you is hazard pay. In dealing with the pandemic, we have seen growing discussion amongst health departments and counties about hazard pay. And the funding that we have received from the coronavirus relief fund will allow us to use those funds if we were to have a hazard pay policy. So I wanted to get some direction from the board. If you would like us to explore this option, coming up with the hazard pay policy. You can't use funds for a hazard pay policy if you don't have the policy first. So we would have to have a policy in order to be able to use those funds for hazard pay.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You want permission to develop a policy.
Absolutely.
And then approve it contents later. Is that correct?
No, we will bring it back to you. You would know what it was. And so what it will do is it will have different tiers. And it will say public health nurses and EMS staff would be eligible for hazard pay because we're in this pandemic. And we would set what those tiers are, whether it be a bonus or a one-time hazard pay adjustment to their pay. And so the policy would address all those things, but that has to be in place before we do anything like that using those coronavirus relief funds.
Okay, sounds good. I just offer an apology actually to the employees directly affected. I think we should have had this some time ago, but it is what it is, and just hopefully that we'll time stamp this back to them and make sure they get this, because this is very important. We've got employees that's been on the front line since day one, and we want to make sure that we definitely show our appreciation and anything that we can do with that. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have heard the request of the county manager to have authorization to develop a Warren County hazard pay policy so we can get this moving. So I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve. Agenda item, what's the 5C, in regards to the hazard pay policy.
Second.
It's been properly motion by Commissioner Hunt, second by Commissioner Pierce, that we approve the development of a Warren County hazard pay policy as requested by the county manager. Is there any further discussion?
I have a quick question.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Jones, can you let us know where we are as far as spending and the funding that we have received?
Absolutely.
Do you know offhand, like what percent?
Ms. Bradford may know. If not, we'll provide you with some that information. Sure.
That's fine.
Was a certain amount of money stipulated for?
Not at all. We just put that we would use some of it to fund employee pay. We can fund public safety pay with those relief funds, and we had some of that adjusted. But we can make adjustments to our plan if we feel that a category is changing, and we can make adjustments to the plan.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last item I have before you is the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners has sent us notice that they are in their legislative goals process for 2021 and 2022. And if we have any items that we would like to have you consider as part of that process, we need to have those submitted to them by September 30th. So if we don't pass a resolution, which will be tonight, what that means is if you all would get that information to us, we will send it to NCACC under the chair's signature. And so I would just encourage you all, if you have items that you know that we need to have on our legislative agenda, if you could get those to us so we could have one county included in the discussion they develop the legislative goals for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate those updates. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move right on to item number 6, which is the Finance Office request. And Ms. Bradford, I'm going to read this while you come up, if you don't mind. And then I'm going to read it. And from there, if there is a particular portion that the commissioners would like to bring up for discussion, Ms. Bradford will be there. So the finance has an amendment number 2 to the fiscal year 2021 Warren County Budget Ordinance. Number 1 is increased finance department budget by $1,400 to rebudget funds, supporting services with atomic technology and said implementation of leave occurs into the financial software system, decreases contingency funds in the building and grounds budget by $9,850, increases maintenance budget in the Board of Elections funds used to replace old sidewalk handicap ramp at the main entrance. Number 3, it increases animal control budget by $2,500 for grant funds received from the NC Veterinary Medical Association, which is purchased cat cages. Number 4, increases EDC budget by $7,000. Cover costs of consulting to assist in the submission of economic adjustment assistance, EDA CARES Act grant, and leading to the marketing plan for the development of Soul City and resiliency plan for Warren County. Number 5, it increases health department budget by $180,489 for COVID-19 grant, and parts represents a carry forward unfunded grant funds for fiscal year 2020, which is $28,796 COVID-619 grant, and the remaining amount represents 3 additional grants received awarded by fiscal year 2021, which is $20,000 of the NCCU grant. $20,047 is COVID 549 grant, and a $111,246 COVID 543 grant, and the increased DSS administration budget by $1,283.62 as a result of increased funding for the Duke Energy Progress Energy Neighborhood Fund. Ms. Bradford, you can thank me later for reading all of that. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, if there's anything in particular that you would like to ask Ms. Bradford about those items that we just discussed, that was just read, please let it be known at this time. All right, there is none. Ms. Bradford, do you have anything that you would like to say?
No, I'm good.
You're good. All right, thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 6 as requested.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agenda item 6 from the Finance Office as presented.
Second.
Properly motion by Commissioner Hunt, second by Commissioner Pierce, that we approve item number 6 as presented by our Finance Office. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed nay, motion is carried. Item number 7, this is consider approval of resubmission of the EPA Brownfield grant, which is an amount of $200,000. It looks like the senior assistant to the county manager is in charge of this at $300,000. So Ms. Charlotte Duncan, you have it.
Thank you. So that EPA Brownfields Assessment Grant will provide funding for grant recipient, hopefully us, to inventory, characterize, assess, and conduct a range of planning activities and develop site-specific cleanup plans, as well as conduct community involvement related to brownfield sites that we have in the county. So the performance period for this grant will be 3 years. And just to make sure that assessment grant is not the same as a cleanup grant. So this assessment grant can help prepare us for applying for a cleanup grant to then clean up these sites. The US EPA Environmental Protection Agency, this brownfield program is intended to provide funds to empower communities like ours to clean up these sites. So last year, in fiscal year 20, we actually submitted an application for this grant in the amount of $300,000. There was no county match required. This grant application was done in partnership with an organization, Terracon Consultants Incorporated, at no cost to the county. We did not receive the grant, but we did score really well. So we would like to apply again. The Economic Development Office and the County Manager's Office would like to resubmit our application with improvements based on the feedback we received for a $300,000 brownfields assessment grant for the FY21 cycle. Because we have our county grant policy, an application of this amount does require approval by you as the Board of Commissioners. And just to note that Terracon is providing their services free of fees, which would typically range $12,000 to $15,000 for grant writing services from their firm. This was an opportunity they offered us last year, and it included a rewrite for fiscal year 21. So I've been working closely with that team to get the improvements made. And our recommendation this evening is that you will approve us making this application in October in the amount of $300,000. Any questions?
Charlotte, I do have a question. I mean, as far as applying for the grant, I think that's a no-brainer, but if we apply for the assessment grant and we say we have a building that has asbestos, would that qualify for something like that? Is that one of the pollutants, or no, not necessarily?
So brownfield sites would be sites that were formerly a chemical plant or a gas station or something like that. I don't know that that would qualify, but I can look into it. It's where the land is contaminated.
It's contaminated. So if we get the assessment grant for that site, we cannot later apply for a cleanup grant for that site. Is that the case?
So the assessment grant will look at a few different sites. It's a community-wide assessment grant, and we've identified a few places. So we would then be able to come back later and apply for a cleanup grant for some of those sites, depending on which direction we decided to go. Okay. This assessment grant will give us the chance to conduct those studies and get community input and figure out which ones we want to mitigate, should we devote the funds to that.
Got it. Okay, with that being said, I move that we approve the resubmission of the EPA Brownsville assessment grant in the amount of $300,000.
It's been properly motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Hunt, that we approve item number 7 as submitted and requested by Ms. Charlotte Duncan, Senior Assistant to the County Manager. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Commissioner Hunt.
I think I heard you correctly when you said that the company that's going to assist in preparing the grant, that's going to be free.
Correct.
I always love to hear free.
Free 99.
And the other thing is that there's not a county match for this particular grant.
For this grant, there is no match.
Okay.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Dunn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, of the board, we are going to address item number 8, which is tax foreclosure property. Commissioner Baker has said that she has an appearance of conflict of interest, so she's going to abstain from this portion. Is that correct, Commissioner Baker? Thank you so much. All right, so ladies and gentlemen of the board, this is considered bid for tax foreclosure property. Also was awarded during August 3rd, 2020 board meeting, but winning bidder failed to follow up with the payment. Therefore, an item is submitted for further consideration of the second highest bid for $2,002 from Lisa Alston which was received on July 2020. So I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the bid received from Sandy and Lisa Austin for $2,002 received July 27, 2020 for foreclosed surplus property ID number G912I.
Second.
It's been properly motioned by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Hunt, that we approve item number 8, which is the tax foreclosure property as stated and presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in
Wait a
favor?
second, I do have a question in regards to, do we suspend people's bidding rights if they continue to make bids and then don't actually follow through? Or what do we do in those cases? Do we just say, oh, well, we'll just take it up the following month? Is there anything in place for that?
I'm going to ask Attorney Kingsbury to help me out with this, but as far as I know, we don't have anything like that in our policy.
Correct. There's nothing in the policy that addresses that. I have spoken with the clerk. We're going to take a further look at the policy because there are some gray areas that we're going to address and bring it to the work session in October.
Okay, thank you.
You know, it's such a bad echo. All I can hear him say was like, we want to look at that in October. So I'm like, okay, right? Yeah.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the board, we're going to entertain a series of appointments to committees and commissions that this board directly has an involvement in which were the vacancies were advertised in July 17, 2019 issue or the Warren Record paper. And the first one is 9A, which is appointment of Carl Victor Tucker to a 5 to 3 year term on the Fire Commission, which expires June 30th, 2023. I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Carl Victor Tucker, fireman to a 3-year term on the Fire Commission, term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Second. It's been properly motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Hunt, that we approve 9A as stated and presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. 9B, appointment Julia Terrain and Greg Cox to the Zoning Board of Adjustments. This is a 3-year term which expires June 30th, 2023. I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Julia Terrain and Greg Cox to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, both a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2023.
It's been properly motion by Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Hunt, that we approve 9B as stated and presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Item 9C, which is, this was tabled from August 3rd regular meeting in the August 19th work session. It is now presented to appoint either April Williams or Dana Taylor to the Social Service Board of Trustees for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. And if I'm correct, they have a recommendation of April Williams. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to follow our precedents that we have done in the past, we're going to follow the recommendations of that board that is seeking to have Ms. April Williams to be appointed to this board. So I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, before we do the motion, I do have a question for you. I know that it was tabled due to a possible conflict. Has that been addressed and is no longer an issue?
Yes, Mr. Kingsbury has sent out an email to us quite some time ago saying that he has checked with the school of government and said that there is no conflict of interest with that appointment, but I will let Mr. Kingsbury address it at this time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I did consult with Carol Malonzi at the School of Government and another official with DHHS regarding the position, and they did not see a conflict in Ms. Williams' appointment.
Thank you. With that being said, then, Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint April Mims to the DSS Board of Trustees with a term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Sorry. It's been properly motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Arnett, that we approve 9C, which is appointment of April Williams to the DSS Social Services Board of Trustees. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Item number 10, request to schedule 2 public hearings. And there'll be October the 5th, 2020 regular monthly meeting, and this is going to be presented by Mr. Krulick, zoning and planning administrator. Mr. Krulick, you have it.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, actually, the first item that's up for consideration is the same information that was presented at your work session with regards to amending our zoning ordinance with regards to height. What was proposed was the recommendation from the planning board to adjust the height in commercial districts from 40 feet max to 60 feet, in the industrial districts to 100 feet from 75 feet. And within the recently revised section to allow for mixed-use development of HUD, CR, or planned unit development, commercial and residential, to allow the option if there was a commercial element in that particular type of development to go up to possibly 100 feet. So those are the changes that have been requested by the planning board and recommended to them from that body as well as myself and staff.
All right, thank you, Mr. Krulick. Ladies and gentlemen, before I bring this to your position of a approval for the to schedule these public hearings, is there any questions or concerns that you want to address Mr. Krulick at this time? Thank you, Mr. Krulick.
Thank you. And the second public hearing we're looking at setting is there's a small piece of property over on the Car Lake side of the county. Some time ago, we had an applicant that wished to change the designation from agricultural residential to neighborhood business. It would not be appropriate for the board to consider this rezoning as there's commercial property right above it. I believe it was a convenience store and an ice cream shop at one time years ago, and the applicant wishes to open potentially a restaurant, a small grill restaurant for that area. It's actually not that far from the current True Fire Department as well.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the board, you've heard the request. And again, before we address the public hearing concerns or consideration thereof, if you have any questions of Mr. Krulick right now. Thank you, Mr. Krulick.
Thank you.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 requests to schedule public hearings, and we're going to address a 10A at this time. So I entertain a motion that we approve and schedule 10A for our October the 5th, 2020 regular board meeting. It'll be before then. So I entertain a motion for that request.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am, Commissioner Baker.
that we have both of those on the same day.
I think that is what the request is, Mr. Krulick. That is
One motion. Can we have this one motion? Since we don't- Do they have to be separate motions? Okay, 2 different motions, okay. Then I'll make a motion that we schedule Warren County Zoning Ordinance Table 2 one-dimensional requirements. I don't know what I'm reading all of these here. Well, we will grant the public hearing scheduled for October the 2nd, 2020 for number 8.
October 5th,
So October 5th, what did I say?
the 2nd.
October 5th, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been properly motion by Commissioner Baker, second by Commissioner Pierce, that we schedule a public hearing in regards to item 10A as stated and presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Ladies and gentlemen, I entertain a motion for item 10B as stated and requested.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we have a public hearing scheduled for October 5th, 2020 for number 10B, petition for rezoning residential to commercial in the Jacksonville Town Road in Nutbush Township. Second.
It's been properly motion by Commissioner Vega, second by Commissioner Pierce, that we set the public hearing for October 5th for 10B as stated and presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Cooley. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to item number 11, which is to consider approval of recommendations for award of parks and recreation renovation contracts for $246,604.50, which is project grant funds, and authorize the county manager to execute agreements upon review by the county attorney. And this is also presented by review by Mr. Richard Dickey Williams, the director. So, Mr. Jones, sure. You want to speak on this?
Sure, thank you, Chair. We, as you know, received a park grant for park renovations at our park at Soul City. We did take this to the Recreation Commission last week, and they have some additional work that they need to do on this. And so what I would ask you to do is, there is one item that they'd like us to proceed with, and that is to get some electrical work done, and then we'll bring the rest back to you at the next meeting. So that amount, if you could approve that this evening, is $21,290.
Mr. Jones, can you say that again, please?
Yes, $21,290 for electrical work at the bathhouse. That's what we'd like to move forward with this evening, and we'll bring the rest of the project back to you at your next meeting.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the county manager is asking that we approve part of this grant, which is $21,290 for electrical work that's out there. Is that correct, Mr. Jones?
That's correct.
So ladies and gentlemen, would I entertain a motion for approval? Or if you want to go ahead and ask any questions of the county manager this time before you submit a approval request. So does anybody have any questions for the county manager? All right, so I entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the work for the pump house be awarded to Breed Love Electric in the amount of $21,290 as presented for the project grant funds.
Second.
All right, it's been properly motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Vega, that we approve this portion of the project grant, which is $21,290 as stated. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Jones, and of course the Recs Commission for getting this done for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to item number 12, which is the Board of County Commissioners updates. But before we do that, which is not on here, which we're going to address the CAC members update. So I'm going to ask Mr. Harrison if he would come up and give us some updates from CAC. And because I do want to hear from about the census, I've heard a lot of good things about that. So Mr. Harrison, thank you, sir.
That's fine. Okay. Commissioners, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kingsbury, members of the Warren County Citizens Advisory Council have been updating the census thermometers. Currently, the estimate for Warren County census is 79%. So that's when we go out and you see the thermometers around the county, this is what you'll be seeing. This number is a combination of two numbers. If you're going to go look at the 2020 census.gov, the first thing is self-reporting. And you'll see a percentage for that. And then there's the non-response follow-up, and that's the more numbers that we get from the census. The Warren County self-reporting is way behind the other counties in the state. Our self-reporting is 46.2%. The state, the rest of North Carolina is 61.8%. Angelina Curry Dunlap and Diana Talley recorded a public service announcement at WAR this last Thursday. And that was a follow-up to a public service announcement that the CAC had done 2 weeks previous. In addition, the CAC has worked with the census representatives here to have support at the food distribution. I believe it was Loaves and Fishes this last Friday, and I think before that, I'm not sure whether it was at the food bank. I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but they did have someone there to register people for the census. Different members of the advisory council, this is from last week, or week before last, have taken selfies of the thermometers and got that posted on their social media. We currently estimate that there are over 3,000 Warren County people have not been counted, maybe as high as 4. One of the problems with the data is that the number we get from the census for the non-response follow-up, the doing more business, is one number for all of the houses in eastern North Carolina that have been contacted. So it's just one number. It's not broken down to Warren County, where the self-reporting is broken down not only with Warren County, but the individual census tracts. Several people have mentioned that they were so preoccupied with COVID that they forgot about the census. So we've got a lot of people that still need to register, and we just need to get the word out. Of course, you know, for every 1,000 people we do not count, this county loses approximately $18 million over the next 10 years. So you take 4,000 people, we're going up in the $70 million that we really need to claim. The census completion date has been moved up. It was October 30th. It's September 30th. We've got 2 weeks to go. Are there any questions?
Okay, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. And I just ask that everyone that can hear my voice, even on Facebook, look, it's very important that we complete this census. We're on the right trajectory as far as the numbers that are going up. But ask a friend, family, co-worker, whomever that lives here in Warren County, just ask them if they got it done. Because it's very important. This speaks to our work. It really does. So I just want to say, please, if you have not completed the census, please get your census done. And again, that date of completion is about
September 30th.
September the 30th. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks to get this done. So I ask you now, just please again urge you to go out and, to just go online and complete your census. If you have any questions about that, the census, who can you call, Mr. Harrison?
I guess it'd be best in the county office to talk with Angelina.
Okay, call up Miss Angelina and she'll guide you through it. Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
I understand it only takes 3 minutes by phone. You can do it with somebody else driving the car.
3 minutes.
And that's 844-330-2020. 844-330-2020.
844-330-2020. All right, we're allowed to hear. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the board, I entertain anyone that has updates for the Board of Commissioners.
you have any? I just want to quickly, and I'll read it off so that I'm not missing anything in regards from the Carter Regional Council of Governments. They have received the approval for the CARES Act revolving loan award from the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Economic Development Administration, in the amount of a little over $1.1 million to make 0% interest loans to existing small to medium businesses that have been negatively affected by the pandemic. For those that are interested, applications are on their website, and their website is CARTARCOG, that's KERRTARCOG.org. I think it was also posted on the county's economic development site page, and it may have been linked to the county's website page as well. So definitely for those who have small and medium businesses and you were negatively impacted by the pandemic, there are loans that 0% interest loans that are available to you by visiting the cartarcog.org webpage. Also, I wasn't able to attend, but I do know that the Vance Granville campus has grown somewhat in Warren County by adding in the NC Works. So for those who may have gone over to where the Board of Elections is and noticed that they're no longer there, they have moved to the Warren County campus of Vance Granville. So we're excited to see that happen. And again, for anyone who's looking for work, NC Works is now located on Vance Granville Warren campus. And that's all the updates that I have.
Mr. Hunt? Commissioner Baker?
Commissioners, I regret that I don't have the information that I'm supposed to present to you tonight. And one of the EMS captains was supposed to email me the information, and I'm afraid he sent it to my county computer, and I'm having trouble trying to pull it up right now, and I didn't have it before I left home. But, and I attended the peer review committee meeting on Friday, and that meeting, most of the information is private. We're not supposed to come out and talk about it. So I'm afraid if I speak, I might say something wrong. If Mr. Pascal over there, Mr. Pascal, can you help me out? If really, I'm thinking about the meeting we had on Friday. I didn't get the information from Captain Tuck. And I don't want to say something that I shouldn't say, but it's very important, and I do want them to have a little information. And when they do email it to me, I'll send each one of you a copy of the information and the figures that they were going to send to me. I don't want to give information and say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It was a problem we were having with drugs and patients that they are delivering that are mental patients, yes. Yes. They're having problems with, well, not problems, but we're having quite a few patients, overdoses and mental patients being picked up by them. And they want our support. They don't know what it is right now that we can do to help. But one thing they're requesting, I know, is that we have more education in the county for our people. And I told them they would have our support. You know, that's nothing. They even would provide the education. But so far as figures and things like that, I don't want to say anything because I might be saying something that I shouldn't say, but it does concern drugs in the county and overdoses and whatever that they're having problems with.
Ms. Baker, is that prescription drug overdoses, or are they talking about illegal drug overdoses? Oh, okay.
Am I right? I'm almost sure they said both because they said it was not necessarily here in the county, might be coming in. You know, that's why I didn't want to give information that I might say something wrong.
Okay.
Well, just hopefully that's an important information for us. So hopefully by the next time we meet, there'll be something that you can present before us. That's good.
Give it to me, send it, I'll send it to you all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Mr. Powell? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be brief on my updates. It's one thing about the Board of Commissioners that we're always looking ahead and leading from the front. And a number of y'all we have spoken about assisting the school system with their practices of educating our kids. Broadband has really been a very hard topic, and we all are in this together to ensure that the children of Warren County are able to get Wi-Fi access to get their schooling now, because it's important. It speaks to their future. I noticed that we do have one school board member here, and I'm so glad to see her tonight, Ms. Lehman. But we have agreed that to allow and ask the county manager to lead efforts to this building right here, the Armory, to be able to be used as a point that maybe, just maybe, a family can come in and reserve a space or something. I don't want to speak too far into the future because I want Mr. Jones to speak about this in a few minutes, but be able to reserve a spot and be able to come in and not be outdoors or whatever, and they would have Wi-Fi access and those type of things. So, Mr. Jones, if you would just express a little bit about the forethought of what we want to do with this building here.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. And so, yeah, we heard from you that the board was looking to see if there's anything we could do to assist our residents and families with getting access to Wi-Fi as we're all in virtual learning and work, etc. And so what we're looking to do is just make sure we have a multi-disciplinary team get together, from buildings and grounds to IT, the library, health department, the county attorney. All of us sort of got together and sort of brainstorm what we could do to offer some assistance to our residents. And so I think we will be able to stand up an option here in the Armory. We just need to make sure that we review what rules and procedures we would need to have in place. And I'm not sure if you noticed tonight, but when you signed on to your Wi-Fi access here in the building, there was an option, or not an option. You had to accept the terms of use for using our Wi-Fi. And so that was the sort of thing that came up in our discussion that we need to sort of put in place, make sure we have the appropriate waivers. But we do feel that we will be able to get an option up here very shortly that will allow our families to come and utilize this space if they're having trouble getting access to Wi-Fi during the day. And we also had a discussion with the Boys and Girls Club. They are interested in providing some services here as well. And so we're trying to see how we can work with both of those as options here in the county.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones, and thank you so much to the Board of Commissioners. Like I said, we're taking much efforts to be a part of the solution. And Ms. Lehman, we're in hopes that if there is something that can be done in partnership with the county staff, this development from the Board of Education, we welcome it. We really do. But we want to let you know that we're in this fight with you, and we're doing what we can, especially to the citizens of Warren County, that let them know that your county government is working on your behalf to ensure that at least to some point that we can offer assistance to your children are able to come in and be able to get part of the Wi-Fi and get a proper education. I'm going to go a little bit further with Mr. John also. I know he's not prepared, but he has a similar venture that's going on. Is that correct, Mr. Austin? Okay, all right. So if you don't mind, Mr. Austin, if you would share that information with the county manager in its development and how we can aid also you, because we're in this fight together and we can support each other to make sure that we can get this done holistically throughout the county, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Mr. Jones.
Sure, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to also let the board know that our library is currently open. They are offering an express service, which means you have to order any materials online. You can go in and pick it up safely. But we are very close to getting the library back open, so we hope that will assist residents who need to have access to Wi-Fi as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you go further or proceed into anything else, really quickly, because I know that the school year is in full full blast and full swing and whatnot. So for those students who do not have Wi-Fi at their home, because Ms. Lincoln is here, what should be the first step for parents to do if their kids are having connection issues? Should they contact the schools? Should they be contacting central office? For those students or those families that are having difficulties, because I know before they were even giving out hotspots, what should parents and students know coming from us? This is step one that we want them to do.
Ms. Perry, that is a great question, but I do know that the school board has a development plan, and I think the first thing, they contact the superintendent's office, and they can get directions from there. Okay. All right. All right, 2573184, which is the superintendent's office, and I think I heard Mr. Stewart's name, that Mr. Stewart's name was put out there. So I think that would be the first point of contact when it comes to the question that Commissioner Pierce has. So, are there any other further updates? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. We're going to move on to item number 13. If there is any more open discussion or comments, Commissioner Hunt.
I just want to ask Mr. Jones to look at some options, maybe in addition to Mr. Austin, but the North Carolina area, because you have a high population of students in that area, and it seems like we have the library might be an option, and we're going to have the harbor, but that's not going to be convenient for people that live on that side of the county. In the Owen, Colorado, Wise, Manson, Drury vicinity. So if we're going to do it, we might want to look at a site possibly in that area as well. Okay.
Thank you. And this is just to establish that, that let the citizens know that their government, Warren County government, is doing what it can to aid in these hardship times when it comes to COVID-19, when it comes to education in the county. And we're looking forward to working with the Board of Education in any way that we can assist them. So, thank you. All right. If there's anything else, I'm going to move that entertain a motion for closed session in accordance with NCGS 143.318. Point 11A, 4, and 6. And this is for location and or expansion of industries and personnel matters. That is the closed session motion request.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter into closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318, 11A, 4 and 6 for location and or expansion of industries and personnel matters.
It's been properly motion by Commissioner Pierce, second by Commissioner Baker, that we enter into closed session as stated in item 13. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed nay. We hereby in closed session.